ملة أبيكم إبراهيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فجعلهم جذاذا إلا كبيرا لهم لعلهم إليه يرجعون. قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. قالوا فأتوا به على أعين الناس لعلهم يشهدون. قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. فرجعوا إلى أنفسهم فقالوا إنكم أنتم الظالمون. ثم نكسوا على رؤوسهم لقد علمت ما هؤلاء لا ينطقون. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We're going to continue our conversation about Ibrahim alayhi salam and what he does after he makes an oath that he has a plan to deal with those idols. فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ. So he smashed them into small bits and pieces, except for a big one that he left for them. إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ. كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ can mean two things here. A big one that he left for them to find, or the big one that they had affinity for. So the lahum could mean two things, meaning the big one that they had the most affinity for, or the big one that he wanted as part of the demonstration he's going to make. I'd like to remind you that this way of making a case that your worship of false gods is incorrect is something exclusively given to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and it was not given to other prophets. And is not something that is left as a sunnah for us, like if Muslims were in charge of a society and there were Buddhists living in that society or Hindus living in that society, that we would, when they have their festival, we would go back into the temple, break all the idols and leave the big one. So when they come back, they can say, who did this? And we say, ask the big one. And if we did that, we'd be following the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. I say this because this actually happened. In Malaysia, in fact, there was a group that came out and said, we have to restore the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and energized young people to go into Buddhist and Hindu temples and break the idols in the middle of the night in the name of restoring the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And of course, eventually those people of other religions got wind that this is what's happening, and they waited with machetes and weapons for the Muslim youth that were coming to vandalize their houses of worship. And when they did come, there was a bloody massacre and violence broke out. And this is all a tragedy because of a lack of tadabbur on the Quran. And this is one of the reasons I'm such an advocate, and I feel so strongly that the only way we can get rid of injustice, truly get rid of injustice in a society is, especially in Muslim societies, is by way of reintroducing the Quran deeply, thoroughly. Because when you reintroduce the Quran, it comes with some things. It comes with a sense of justice, a sense of purpose. It comes with the ability to think critically. It comes with the ability for you not joining a cult. You don't become worshipers or blind followers of a personality. You don't start thinking somebody is a saint and they're so holy that everything that comes out of their mouth is correct. You become a sincere, genuine follower of truth. And you respect those who know more than you, but you also know how to respectfully disagree. You know how to make up your own mind. These are the things that empower a human being. And this is one of the most fundamental things our deen wants from us. The last thing, the qualities of the society of shirk, the people that don't believe in the right religion, they have certain qualities. And I want you to take note of those qualities in the people of Ibrahim. The nation that he was dealing with, they had certain qualities. And we have to be really careful in asking ourselves, Are we becoming, as a Muslim society, are we becoming a kind of society that has the kind of qualities that those people had, right? Because we're on the Ibrahim side of things. We're not supposed to be on the mushrik side of things. Alhamdulillah, we're not worshiping idols. But if our mentality and our thought process resembles them more than it does Ibrahim alayhi salam, there's something really wrong with this picture, right? So we have to study these passages with a critical eye. Now, I say that Ibrahim alayhi salam was given this mandate to destroy the idols, and it's something exclusively given to him. First of all, Allah has alluded to that in different places, like تِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ, or وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. Allah Azza wa Jal tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with instructions, and he fulfilled all of them. So there's a special kind of test. إِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ, يعني إِبْرَاهِيمَ خاصة. Right, so it's muqaddam. The maf'ul bihi is muqaddam. The object of the verb is preceded, and what that would suggest is the way Allah tested Ibrahim alayhi salam is not like He tested any other prophet. And actually, even Allah didn't say, bil ibtila'at, or bil fitan. He said bi kalimatin. Allah tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with words, and words are representative of instructions also. So the instructions given to Ibrahim alayhi salam were huge tests. Of course, some of those instructions were like slaughtering his child, or leaving his family in the desert. But other instructions can also include the demonstration he made to his people, Hada Rabbi, Hada Akbar. That's also an instruction from Allah. Because Allah says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. We gave Ibrahim alayhi salam his uprightness from a long time ago. In other words, everything he was doing, it was doing based on the rushd that Allah had given him. Right? And so if we put all those pieces together, what picture is painted? Ibrahim alayhi salam was given instructions like no other prophet was given, and not to be repeated by other prophets. And I said something a few years ago, some strongly disagreed with it. I find it very convincing. I'm going to share it with you. And of course, I personally believe in you making up your own mind. So I would advocate that again. But I still have to share with you what I find convincing. Some people argue, no, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he also broke the idols when he conquered Makkah. So he fulfilled the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So you're wrong. Ibrahim alayhi salam was not exclusive. It's also a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if you follow that mentality, you know what that would mean? That would mean that when Muslims eventually ruled over India, they made a mistake because they left all the Hindu temples intact. And the Malaysians that are in charge of the country, that are the majority Muslim country, still have, on your way from Kuala Lumpur to the International Islamic University of Malaysia, you're going to pass by a giant Buddhist temple that's going to be up on the mountain. You have to take a lot of steps to see, but you can see it from a distance. It's in a Muslim country. The Muslims there must have made a mistake. Or what happened recently in Afghanistan, when the first wave of the Afghani takeover, the Taliban takeover happened, they destroyed a lot of ancient idols, right? Oh, they must have done the right thing because they're fulfilling the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why not? Because the Kaaba was originally a masjid. When Rasulullah ﷺ broke the idols, yeah, it looks similar to what Ibrahim ﷺ did, but he wasn't destroying a temple. He was cleaning Allah's house. It was built for the purpose of the worship of one God. That's like saying if somebody forcefully took over a masjid and dropped the giant crucifix at the mimbar, and then when the Muslims finally liberate that masjid, they smash the crucifix, or they remove it, then this is precedent for them to go into churches and do that. No, absolutely not. That's not the understanding of our deen. But Ibrahim alayhi salam did that. And so he was tested in ways like no other prophet was tested. He was given instructions that no other prophet was given. And that's why he was given a status and a rank that no other prophet has been given. In fact, I would even argue philosophically, there's a reason for that. There's a reason Ibrahim alayhi salam took an aggressive stance like no other prophet. Other prophets were upfront about the da'wah, right? They were upfront about this is the corruption, worship only one God and all of it. But they weren't demonstrating it by breaking idols, right? But why is Ibrahim alayhi salam taking such a tough stance, or why is he given that instruction? Perhaps the answer lies in what Allah says about him when he says he was ummah. He was a nation all by himself, right? So he's not even acting as one. He's acting as an entire powerful nation, right? And so it's different. Nobody else is called an ummah. No other individual is called an ummah in the Quran except him, alayhi salam. So he smashes the idols and leaves the big one for إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ, except a big one for them. لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ, in hopes that they will come back to him, hoping they will come back. Now, the he could be Ibrahim and it could be the big idol, meaning hopefully they come back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's asking for trouble. He's not vandalizing it and running. He's going to stay there waiting for them to show. He's hoping they come back. Or he's hoping they come back to this one idol. And the narrations kind of fill, I don't know the authenticity, the narrations come and fill in the gap, like perhaps he broke them all smashed them with an axe and left the axe in the arms of the big idol, right? So like, who did this? So, قَالُوا مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. They said, who did this with our gods? Whoever has done this is certainly from those that have done terrible wrong. He's from among the wrongdoers. Who did this with our gods is already, it's a remarkable thing to say. You come to these gods for protection. You come to these gods so they can save you. You come to these gods because you say, so-and-so did this to me, so-and-so did that to me. And now you're coming and you're saying our gods are the poor victims who victimized our poor gods. I mean, it negates the entire purpose of having a god, right? It just negates the entire purpose of it. إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى. So when they said that, when they're having this outcry, they're looking at this, desecrated temple, they're enraged. Some of them said, oh, we heard a young man, fatan, يذكرهم. We heard a young man that was talking about them. يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرَاهِيم. Ibrahim is what he's called. They say his name is Ibrahim, or Ibrahim is how he's called. So they remember that this is his name, or we remember one kid that was talking about them. We didn't take him too seriously back then, أَنْتَ مِنَ اللاعبين, but he's the only one we can think of. So now the mob gets even more enraged. And they say, قَالُوا فَأْتُوا بِهِ عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِ النَّاسِ. They said, bring him in front of the eyes of the gathering of all the people. Bring him in front of everyone. We want to make a public execution or public demonstration of this. Now let me pause here for a moment because I'm going through the ayat rather quickly. What are we supposed to learn from this? We're supposed to learn from this that religions that are not based on reason quickly turn into a mob. They quickly turn into an angry mob. And when they find whoever they're going to blame, they go after them, publicly. They want to make an example out of someone and beat them, and this is them defending their religion. The Muslim can be offended by something a kafir says, but we have something more powerful than a mob or our rage. We have reason. We have the word of Allah. Allah in the Quran says, وَقَالُوا, and they said this. And they said to the Prophet, he's mu'allam, majnoon. He's being taught by somebody. He's crazy. They said, things about the Quran. They said things about Allah. They made fun of the resurrection, and we don't go. They made fun of our iman in the akhirah. Who did that? Who's with me? Takbir. Let's dhabiha that guy. Send him to the akhirah, then he'll believe in the akhirah. We didn't have that mentality. Quran says they say the most offensive things about your faith. They say the most offensive things about your book. It's in the Quran. Offenses against the Quran are recorded in the Quran. Offenses against Rasulullah, he's being called a liar, he's being called insane, he's being called a plagiarizer. All of those offenses are recorded in the Quran. We recite them with tajweed. And then Allah says, Qul, and respond. Meaning we are intelligent people. We're not a mob. We don't resort to animalistic behavior. Now, if you think about that for a moment and then take a scan of what happens in Muslim communities, in Muslim countries, when someone does something that is offensive to our religion, how we respond, how far from, do we look more like the followers of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or do we look more like the mob that was ready to lynch Ibrahim alayhi salam, So he says here, and I'm not dismissing the emotion, but actually one of the pinnacles of our religion is the ability to control our emotion, to respond reasonably, to respond with powerful argument, not respond with ignorance. In fact, the moment in philosophy you'll learn, the moment you have to resort to force, that is when you've lost the argument. Because your words weren't powerful enough to silence the enemy, so you had to use force, which means the war of words and the war of reason has already been lost. When Fir'aun didn't have any more answers for Musa, then he said, I'm going to use force. I'm going to get you thrown in jail. And the moment he said, I'm going to get you thrown in jail, the argument is over, because if he talks anymore, he's going to go to jail. But it also, the argument has been won by Musa alayhi salam. You see? So the moment threats begin, the argument has already been won. So when they said, bring him in front of the people so they can all see. Now, bring him in front of the people so he can explain himself. Let's see what they're going to say. قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم? They said, you? Did you do this? Were you really the one who did this, Ibrahim? You did this with our gods? قال بل فعله كبيرهم. No, their big one did it. Their big one did it. Now, you would say, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, lying is haram in Islam. I mean, the big one didn't do it, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam did it. Allah just told us he did it. And a few ayat later, Ibrahim alayhi salam saying, no, he did it. So, is this a lie, is the question. No, it's not a lie, because when you know and I know what the truth is, so if you say to me, hey, where you been? And I say, I've been in jail. No, I saw you yesterday. Where you been? I was in Africa. Where you been? I was in the Atlantic Ocean. What's it to you? No, just tell me. When I say that, you already know I'm not telling the truth. I'm not deceiving you. I'm being standoffish with you. Okay? So when somebody gives you an answer, you know and they know it's not true, then it's not a lie. Right? It has another purpose. You know what the other purpose is? The other purpose is you're being standoffish, or you want to make someone feel stupid. Basically. Right? And so here, when Ibrahim alayhi salam says, the big one did it. I mean, so he's playing along, and he wants them to feel ridiculous. He wants them to feel that. Again, something that you don't find prophets doing. Prophets don't want to make their people feel stupid. They want to invite them. Da'wah is an invitational thing. It's not a condescending thing. But Ibrahim alayhi salam's rage against shirk is so powerful that it makes him take this snickering comment, بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا. This big one. I mean, look, all of them got smashed. He seems to be doing okay. Don't you think that's a little suspicious, guys? I mean, something's off with this. بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا. And they say, well, why are you asking me first? I seen you guys ask this one for your cow's not giving you enough milk, or it didn't rain enough this season. You ask him all kinds of stuff. Why don't you ask him? فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْتِقُونَ. And also, your gods, they can't just because he smashed them, does that mean your gods are dead? Because your gods are ever living, right? So you could just take one of the Lego pieces and ask them, hey, who did this to you? Right? So he says, فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْتِقُونَ. So he says the big one did it, and you know who he's not going to admit it, because he's the big one. He's going to be like, nah, I didn't do it. I know the weapon's in my hand, but I didn't do it. So you know who's going to tell you? The victims will testify. So why don't you look at the little pieces and ask them, إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْتِقُونَ, if they can talk. Because, I mean, you talk to them. Clearly, you must talk to them, because they must talk back. So go ahead. فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. So the literal phrasing in the Quran is they went back inside themselves. They went back towards themselves. You know what that means? They got stopped dead in their tracks, in their thought process. Like, wait, what? What just, it's I think the modern expression for that is they got owned, right? They just felt so crushed by that argument that they started questioning themselves. Wait, I'm angry about who did this? These gods couldn't defend themselves? I'm supposed to ask these smash pieces? That doesn't make any sense. But if it doesn't make any sense, then my religion doesn't make any sense. Then فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ فَقَالُوا. So they said, within them, they had a conversation internally. Now Allah is describing the internal conversation of someone who believes in a false doctrine. And what is he saying? إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. There's no doubt about it. You people, you're the ones that are doing wrong. Now look at this, the flip. In ayah number 59, مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Who did this with our gods? He's the one that's from the wrongdoers. And a few ayat later, they're saying inside of themselves, there's no doubt about it, you're the ones that are wrong. You're the ones that are wrong. SubhanAllah, there's a flip that's happened internally. But just because someone accepts the truth internally doesn't mean they're willing to say it externally. And this is the human ego. Human ego is yet another God that we must talk about. Someone knows they're wrong. They know they're wrong, but their pride will not allow them to accept it. In fact, not only will they not allow themselves to accept what they know to be wrong and admit it, they will become more aggressive and dig their heels even deeper on the wrong. They'll get even more, oh yeah? And instead of taking a step back, and you would think that they're now on the defensive. No, the best defense is what? Is offense. So they get even more offensive. So internally they're defeated, and externally they're enraged. They're enraged even further. So what did they do? ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. Then they dropped they fell. This expression actually is figurative. It's suggesting that they were thrown back on their heads, meaning like they dropped their heads and they're just like, how do I come up with an answer? They dropped their head down like they're searching for an answer, It also means they bowed their heads down in shame. But then when they raised their head, they're like, I gotta say something. So what did they say? I love their answer. لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ مَا هَؤُلَاءِ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ. مَا هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْطِقُونَ, sorry. You already know, these don't talk. Wait, I already know these don't talk, but that means that they don't talk to you either, bro. Did you just make my point? Did you just So in their rage, they admitted they're wrong. They admitted they're wrong. And sometimes the thing with wrongdoers, when ego becomes a god, is that in their rage, they can even admit they're wrong and say, yeah, I'm wrong, so what? The defiance reaches a point where reason is no longer a criteria, right? So I am wrong, so what? So they say, مَا كَانَ هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْطِقُونَ. You already know, these don't talk at all. So then after that, قَالَ أَفَتَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُكُمْ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَضُرُّكُمْ. So you're worshiping, other than Allah, something that can't benefit you, can't harm you, because they can't even benefit themselves. They can't even prevent harm from themselves. How are they going to benefit you? How are they going to cause you harm? This statement is not just a statement about idols. When I truly internalize Iman, you know what I've internalized? A human being, at the end of the day, a human being cannot benefit me and cannot harm me. Society cannot benefit me and cannot harm me. No one can benefit me or harm me when Allah wills it not to happen. There's a seen realm of benefit and harm, but there's a spiritual dimension to benefit and harm. And there's a courage that gets injected inside of a believer when they really internalize, how can you worship someone that cannot benefit you and cannot harm you? And that, therefore, what's the alternative? What's the corollary? The corollary is, then you can only worship someone who can both benefit you and harm you. Which means now my relationship with Allah is, only Allah can alleviate harm from me. Only Allah can give me benefit. And if there's harm coming my way, that can only come to me if Allah wills it. It cannot come to me any other way. No one can do anything to me except by Allah's permission. مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. There is no calamity that will ever strike at all except by Allah's permission. This gets internalized. So he makes this phrasing to them, أُفِّل لَكُمْ. أُفِّل لَكُمْ is one of those things in Arabic that it's really hard to translate. Maybe there's not even a verbal translation. It's, you people. That would be my translation. I don't know if I ever write a translation of the Quran, I'm gonna have to have a comic section or something in there. Just like maybe that emoji, they have that emoji, But uffil lakum is, what is wrong with you people? Like it's an expression of terrible frustration is the expression uff. It's one of those things that from ancient Arabic made its way into Urdu, Punjabi, other languages. Uff, oh, like they use that, right? But it's actually from the ancient Arabs. Uffil lakum wa ma ta'buduna min dunillah. What terrible frustration I have with you people and with whatever you worship other than Allah. Afala taqilun. Are you then, okay, after all of this, you're mad at me, but how about this? Are you going to think at all? Are you then going to think? Because you just said You just said something that negated your own religion. Are you still not willing to think? Well, maybe now they will think. Or maybe the ego is bigger than the ability to think. Because what does pride do? Pride and rage, they obliterate my ability to think. So thinking can lead me to truth, right? But pride and rage can keep me on my falsehood and make me even more aggressively committed to my falsehood. So what's their response? قَالُوا حَرِّقُوهُ, burn him alive. Set him ablaze. That's their response. When he said, don't you think then? They said, burn him alive. This is obviously now, not only have they lost the argument, they've proven that he's right, but they've also shown us something else. The people that follow the people of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the people who follow the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, us, we're able to keep our cool no matter what is said in response. We're able to respond with reason. But the people who follow the way of the ignorant, the one he was challenging, they can't handle confrontation. They can't handle being challenged. And they get to the point where they have no responses. Their only response is, I must destroy you. It's not enough to shut you up. I must annihilate you. I must end you. حَرِّقُوهُ. And not only will I end you, I will make it look like I'm doing something righteous. How? وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ. Burn him alive and help your gods. Meaning, by burning him alive, you'll be helping, aiding your gods. My God, you turn to gods for aid. You don't aid your gods. You know? So, but now the psychology of it is important to understand. Burning Ibrahim alayhi salam alive is actually a religious mandate now. If you truly care about your gods, you must destroy him. The real reason you must destroy him is we don't have answers for him. He's raising questions we don't have answers to. Let me bring this down to reality. It's going to sound a little bit controversial, but I think it's important for us. You know, Islam has gone through many phases in its history, and Muslim civilization has gone through many chapters in its history, and we're now in a new chapter. In this new chapter, after the rise of the internet, social media, free thinking, open access to information, there are, if you want to learn your religion, you can just go on YouTube and learn your religion if your country allows access to YouTube or whatever other platform. You have access to information you never had before, but you also have access to criticisms against Islam or questions about certain conclusions about Islam that you never imagined, right? So your parents and their parents and their parents, they learned something and they accepted it and there was no questioning it. But now your kids' generation is exposed to information that's saying, hey, why do you believe in this religion? It has this contradiction. Or, the scholars say this, but the Quran is saying this, or the hadith is saying this, or how is this hadith authentic? Or all kinds of questions, How is this fatwa correct? Or whatever. Well, all kinds of questions challenging what we thought we knew. Now, when someone brings a challenge to what we thought we knew, there's the Ibrahim response or there's the mob response. The mob response is this person is asking a question that challenges my comfort zone, that challenges the conclusions of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Therefore, we will consider them a murtad, we will consider them wajibul qatl, we will consider them wajibul beating in front of everybody else. We will publicly humiliate them, destroy them, etc. Or you could say, I hear your criticisms, here's a response. Here's a rational response to every one of the issues you raised. Here's why criticism number 1 doesn't hold water. Here's why criticism number 2 doesn't make sense. And maybe half of criticism number 3 does make sense. Civil, intelligent conversation to be able to respond. If you're able to do that, you know what happens? Those same people that were pretending to have an intelligent criticism, they turn into a mob. They turn into a mob. So my point is, whoever turns into a mob has lost. Whoever turns into a mob has accepted defeat. So when the language becomes, oh, you people, I hate you people, or let's do this, and you are the problem with society. When you start talking like that, then that's not this deen. This deen says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. We just read the ayah. He invited, why don't you think? Why don't you intellectualize? Why don't you analyze? Why don't you use your head? So now we are in the age where somebody will come along and say, well, I don't believe in this ayah, or I don't believe in this conclusion, or I don't agree with this tafsir. And we can either say these kuffar, watch out for them, these people can't be allowed anywhere near us, this, save your children, etc. Or we could respond. We could present a more compelling case for why the ayah should be understood a certain way, or a more compelling case, or why we should follow and respond to that criticism. Because at the end of the day, truth is not about what makes you comfortable. Truth is what stands on the foundation of evidence, right? If you can present strong evidence, then you've presented your case. That's it. It's that simple, right? So here we're learning that about ourselves. And the fact that Muslims are so quick to get into protest and anger and rage and warnings and threats and all this stuff, you know what that tells you? How far we've come from the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Is one of the reasons I wanted to do this series, is because we have to take a difficult look in the mirror about what we've become, how far we've come from where we're supposed to be. So, حرقوه وانصروا آلهتكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. قلنا يا نار. I'm going to end this really quickly now. قلنا يا نار كوني بردا وسلاما على إبراهيم. We said, Allah said, we declared fire, be cool and peaceful on Ibrahim. Be cool. So the miraculous thing that happens is he's, catapulted into a giant flame, and the fire refuses to burn him. So now they've seen their gods powerless to benefit or harm. And in the same episode, they've seen the God of Ibrahim able to protect him in the middle of an impossible situation. So not only have they rationally deconstructed their religious worldview, they've now seen something that can only be possible by divine intervention. So there's no reason left for them to not accept. But what did I tell you? What is the barrier to accepting truth? Ego, rage. So what's the last ayah in this story? وَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَخْسَرِينَ. They had a plot planned for him, and we made them the lowest. After you've been defeated, the last thing we learn is that even then, now we couldn't defeat him face to face, so we need to find some other scheme, some other way to defeat him. Because the problem isn't truth anymore. The problem is being defeated hurts. Being wrong is just, it goes against my pride. I'm willing to accept anything except being wrong. That I can't accept. SubhanAllah. There's such an insight into the mentality of a believer and how I'm supposed to be, you're supposed to be open to being wrong. As a student of the Quran, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a scholar, I've never claimed to be, I do my best to try and understand what Allah says and try to study it, discuss it with scholars, arrive at a certain conclusion. And you know what? I need to be intellectually honest and say, perhaps somebody will come along and present a case to me about this ayah that I thought I understood, or this case to me about this hadith that I understood, or this historical event that I never considered, and because of it, I was previously wrong. And now I see it completely differently. If I'm not open to that I am not committed to the truth, I'm committed to my desire to being right. My commitment is to my own ego, not to the truth. So we have to develop that ultimate commitment to the truth in our loyalty to our father Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the last thing for today is a contemplation on, again, Ibrahim alayhi salam when it comes to the truth. People, look at the irony. People would reject the truth because they're committed to their ancestors, right? Hear me carefully. People used to reject the truth because of their commitment to their ancestors. And we are committed to the truth because of our commitment to our ancestor Ibrahim alayhi salam. Like Allah did, every other society will reject the truth because of the ancestors, because of that false loyalty. And we will be the ones who will continue to go against everyone and stay loyal to our father Ibrahim alayhi salam. Doesn't matter who gets angry, because he taught us to remain committed to the truth. He took something that the world has followed for ages, an ailment, and he turned it into a healing. SubhanAllah. So we proudly say we follow the religion of our father Ibrahim. When they say they follow the religion of their fathers, they have to shut their brains off. When we say that we follow the religion of our father, we have to open our eyes. You know, أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة. Subhanallah. So powerful. It's revolutionary. Like, you don't think of a religion like that. You don't think of a religion that's demanding from you to be analytical and critical and thinking and thoughtful and responsive. You know, you just want a religion to just be something that you just hear and you just obey without ever thinking about it. You know, may Allah Azza wa Jal make us real thinkers and followers of the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam in the true spirit of the words that Allah has given us. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.